Nancy Pelosi accuses the D.C. rioters of choosing their, quote, whiteness over democracy. In this video, we're going to take a look at the speaker's latest attempt to racialize these protests, how she's not alone in inserting race in the middle of an already volatile and divisive situation. And we're going to look precisely at why so many are turning to racialized sentiments, particularly in the Democrat Party. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Wonderful to be with you. As always, we believe the worldwide populist revolt has just begun, and we're here to give you conservative hope in the midst of turbulent and trying times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We'd love to have you as a regular part of this channel where each and every single day we analyze often distressing current events, but now in light of hopeful conservative trends so that you can think better and feel better. Before we dive in here, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video. That's our good friends over at Virtual Shield. Gang, if you're not using what's called a VPN or virtual private network on your desktop, tablet, or mobile device while browsing the internet, then you really are exposing yourself to a lot of potential danger. But protecting yourself online simply has never been easier. And to make it even better, Virtual Shield is offering our audience 50% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons. So don't wait. This is a limited time offer. Click on the link in the description below and sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. U.S. News and World Report highlighted comments made by Speaker Nancy Pelosi regarding the Capitol building riots. According to Pelosi, the rioters in the Capitol were guilty of, in her words, choosing, quote, their whiteness over democracy. Now, U.S. News is reporting that Pelosi made the remarks while hosting an online video meeting with San Francisco constituents. In the process, she criticized the mob that attacked the Capitol building last week, saying, quote, "It has been an epiphany for the world to see that there are people in our country led by this president, for the moment, who have chosen their whiteness over democracy." Now, this is a story that got picked up in a number of media outlets, and I have yet to find a single one that actually explained what on earth is meant by that. What does it precisely mean that one or many have chosen their whiteness over democracy? It's a fascinating turn of phrase, and it most likely has to do, of course, with the notion of white privilege. Regardless, it's striking that among the various media outlets that I perused, not a single one reporting on this bothered to ask the question, what precisely does the speaker mean by this? I think, again, that's very telling regarding the very cozy relationship between the media and the Democrat Party. Now, while all that's going on, Missouri Representative and ultra-leftist Cori Bush has introduced legislation, I believe as of today, it's her first, in fact, which is a resolution calling for the removal of the Republican members of Congress who challenged and objected to the Electoral College because, in her words, quote, "the dangerous consequences of their actions led to an attempted white supremacist coup that put thousands of lives in danger and left 5 people dead." And this resolution, of course, follows the rhetoric that we heard from many on the left, such as NBA All-Star LeBron James, who made the accusation that the white rioters, or mostly white rioters at the Capitol building, would have been treated very differently if they were BLM activists. Quote, "It's no ifs, ands, or buts. We already know what would have happened to my kind if anyone had gotten close to the Capitol, let alone storm inside the offices and inside the hallways." What's going on here? Why are we seeing such a rush to racialize these riots among members of the political and cultural left? Well, if you've been following this channel for some time, and please subscribe if you haven't, but if you've been part of our journey over the last few years, you know that we've often spoke of the work of the French sociologist Michel Maffesoli and his conception of neo-tribalism, which is a notion that the world is more and more reorganizing around racial and ethnic identities. And the basic argument here is that with the death of liberal globalism, which has been collapsing now for the last 3 decades, with the inevitable death of liberal globalism, the world is basically fracturing. It's breaking up. and populations are increasingly reorganizing themselves around their own shared identity markers, such as nation, culture, custom, and increasingly ethnicity and race. And this is resulting in two kinds of nationalisms: civic nationalism and ethnocentric nationalism. Sometimes there's, of course, crossover between the two, but either you have populations re-embracing a polyethnic nationalism, like what you have in Russia, with over 100 different ethnicities represented, but they're all united by a unique and vibrant sense of Russianness. This has been the genius, as it were, of Putin in his efforts at restoring a unified Russia after it lost a third of its territories when the Soviet Union fell in 1991. So either you go the way of civic nationalism, as President Trump was trying to restore here in the United States, or you go the way of ethnocentric nationalism, which generally involves nothing less than the resegregation of populations around ethnic loyalties and identities. And that's precisely what we're seeing manifest itself here in the States, frankly, not so much on the political right, but actually on the side of the political left. And Democratic leaders have recognized that this resurgent ethnocentrism is actually a threat to the unity of the Democrat Party. So, for example, over the summer, at a rally in Los Angeles, Pan-African Studies professor Melina Abdullah, she's the co-founder of Black Lives Matter LA, she denounced the city of Los Angeles as filled with what she called liberal white supremacists. Now, listen to that term. Responding to a sign held up by one of the protesters that said, "F Donald Trump," Abdullah said, "As we talk about a white supremacist terrorist like Donald Trump, remember that we live in a city that is largely liberal white supremacist. So when you say F Donald Trump, make sure you say F Eric Garcetti." Now, if you don't know, Eric Garcetti is the ultra-left mayor of Los Angeles. He announced $150 million in cuts to the LA Police Department to show his fidelity to the BLM, call to defund the police. But did you catch that? You'll notice that according to Abdullah, the fact that she and the mayor are both, say, ideological liberals no longer means they're on the same political side. A white liberal can now be equated with a supposedly white supremacist terrorist like Donald Trump. And ironically, these sentiments are introducing a new wave of neo-segregation policies, particularly on our college campuses. Now, before we get into that, we do have something special for you. In response to this latest progressive purge, we here at Turley Talks are currently setting up a number of different alt-tech sites so that we never ever lose touch with each other. And we would love to share with you all the different sites that we're on. And you could find out by simply clicking on the link below and signing up for our alternative media directory. This directory is going to make sure that you find precisely the alt-tech site that's right for you. And best of all, you learn how to think better so you can feel better, but without the threat of censorship. It's absolutely free, so make sure to click on that link below. Sign up for our Turley Talks Alternative Media Directory today. All right, so we're starting to see nothing less than neo-segregationist tendencies from within the political left. So, for example, in a recent study, 42% of the 173 schools surveyed offered racially segregated residences, 46% offered racially segregated orientation programs, and 72% hosted racially segregated graduation ceremonies. In many parts of our society, but most particularly where we see left-wing sentiments dominate, such as on our college, university campuses, and now increasingly in our state and federal governments, we do appear to be seeing a very real manifestation of something akin to Michel Maffesoli's notion of neo-tribalism. Now, if that is the case, then we can now get a better sense of what Nancy Pelosi was frankly babbling about in her remarks that the rioters were choosing their whiteness over democracy. Pelosi here is tapping into a highly charged racial rhetoric that has infused the Democratic Party. And in many ways, as we've seen particularly with the riots in our nation's Democrat-dominated cities, it could indeed eventually overturn Democrat Party leadership. And so I think Nancy Pelosi, as I'm sure we're going to see with a number of other party officials, she's simply adopting a rhetoric to show that she's in solidarity with this radical racializing of the Democratic Party. And as such, it doesn't really mean anything outside of Pelosi's own political opportunism. It's very similar to, the second impeachment vote that they have planned for tomorrow. Every single Democrat will vote for it, but it's going to go nowhere. It won't even make it to the Senate, that according to the analysis of Alan Dershowitz. And so it seems, to be honest with you, that in many respects, this kind of racialized rhetoric, it just couldn't be any more removed from reality. British scholars Roger Eatwell and Matthew Goodwin have documented how blatant racism has actually been on the decline in most Western nations for decades. For example, when asked questions like, would you feel comfortable if one of your relatives married somebody from a different ethnic group? Or would you work for someone who is ethnic? Or would you be comfortable living next to a family of a different race, ethnicity? Right? These are classic markers of traditional racism. And yet, across much of the West, the number of people who would feel uncomfortable with that has plummeted. Back in 1958, more than 90% of Americans disapproved of interracial marriage. Today, it's actually the opposite. 90% approve. In Britain, more than half of the population opposed intergroup relations as recently as the 1980s. Today, fewer than 1 in 4 do. Study after study shows that racism and racist attitudes have been plummeting over the last several decades throughout the West. But that kind of reality doesn't seem to lend itself to the kind of political exploitation Nancy Pelosi's racial rhetoric does. And so there's little reason to suspect that such rhetoric is going to cease anytime soon. Now, before you go, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And you'll definitely want to check out my latest video. I just uploaded it, and it is how Elon Musk is lashing out against cancel culture, all as a populist revolt surges. You're not going to want to miss this, so make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there.